You know, out of all the books and tapes and people you've modeled and all those things, if you're going to tell me like one thing, Mr. Robbins, that would just change my whole life, that would make me happy, that would make me wealthy, what's that one thing? And I can give you an answer, and it's real easy. Become a team player. And I don't say that lightly. It is the single most powerful thing you can do to change your entire life. And you're already on a team, but that's not the same as being a team player. And I don't just mean with the team you're here with. I mean all over the place. Because there's an interesting thing about human beings. Human beings are only happy when they're growing. That's it. I don't care how big your practice gets, how many patients you help, what occurs. If you don't feel like you're expanding, that's when you begin to contract inside. That's why John Belushi isn't here. Because this guy grew like crazy, grew, and then he thought that's all he could grow. And that's a real dangerous place that you get in your practice or in your life when you say, this is the most I can grow. That's real dangerous. Because that means, listen, you're either climbing or you're sliding. There's no in between. You know, if you really want to make sure your life is working, Ray Kroc had a great phrase. He said, when you're green, you grow, and when you're ripe, you rot. And an interesting approach. The bottom line is we need to look at how to cause ourselves to grow continuously. And how many would agree that no matter how much success you've had in your life, in your relationships with your children, financially, in your practice, no matter how much it is, if you weren't feeling like there was something more, like you were moving forward, like you were expanding, even if you were successful compared to others, how many would agree you weren't really happy inside? How many would agree with that? How many would also agree that the happiest times in your life weren't always the most successful, but were the times when you're making the most progress or most expansion? How many would agree with that? So if this is really ringing true within you, if it really feels right to you, then the real question in life is not how do we be happy? We know how to be happy. Make sure we're growing. The real question is how do we make sure that every day we're expanding and growing? We're pushing ourselves a little forward. We're finding out who we really are and what we're really capable of. And I found out that we're in a trap, most of us. And the trap is that most of us have this thing called a comfort zone. And that comfort zone is like this idea of how much we think we deserve emotionally, or in a relationship, how close we think we need to be. Too much more than that, we get uncomfortable, or how much impact we need to have on our community, or how much money you think you need to earn, or how much acknowledgement, or whatever the case may be. And when we hit that comfort zone, what most of us do is we stop. Kind of like the thermostat metaphor I gave you on the first day we got together. It's like, that's where we are. We don't go too much above that. We don't want to go too much below it. It's uncomfortable. We just kind of hang out in that space. And the problem with that is, it's not that your business isn't growing, or you're not, helping as many patients, or making as much money, or whatever it is. None of those things. The problem is, you don't have a reason to keep expanding. And you kind of hang out in there. How many have been in that place where you're not really pushing yourself, you're not really decreasing, just like in the middle, and remember what that felt like? How many can remember a time like that? I want you to think about how that felt. It's pretty unsatisfying, isn't it? And the longer you stay there, usually the worse you feel about yourself. In fact, when you get in that place, usually what happens is you don't like where you are, so now you reach for food, or alcohol, or drugs, or something outside yourself to try and change the way you feel. And the reason you feel that way, though, and you're trying to stuff the feelings down or change the feelings with something outside yourself, is simply because you're not expanding. And so for years, I try to figure out what is it? The people who, certain people just seem to always be growing and expanding. They always seem to be happy. How many can think of somebody like that? Just think in your head of somebody who's always growing, always expanding, and they're just fun to be around. And so I started to talk to these people, find out what is it that drives these people. And inevitably, I found out what it was. Human beings, you and I, there's something really special about us. The special thing is this. Human beings will do more for others than they'll ever do for themselves. Think about it. I don't know about you, but I know I would do more for my kids than I would for myself. I don't necessarily think that's right, but it's what's so. How many of you do the same for your kids? I'm curious. It's like, we'll do more for others than for ourselves. For some reason, that's the way we're made up. We're made to contribute. We're made to do something that makes a difference. We're made, hopefully, to leave our mark. And we do that, hopefully, through other human beings, other souls that we have the ability to touch. And when we do that, we feel the most fulfillment. And that sense of contribution, that feeling like you've done something for others that really matters, there's no amount of money that'll ever come close to it. There's no size of practice. There's no acknowledgement somebody can give you that'll match it. And you're going to run out of acknowledgement. I mean, there's a point when acknowledgement is like nice and you appreciate it, but it's like you don't need it because you've had so much of it that it's inside now. And it's wonderful as a nice affirmation from the outside too, but you don't have to have that to know. It's inside. Or there's a point when, for almost anybody, they've got enough money. Unless they've made money the measuring stick of constant growth and progress. So there's those things that normally drive people, they drift away. The only thing that has lasting ability to move us and to motivate us to grow is other people we care about. That's the power of team. See, if you can find a team of people that you love and care about and you give anything to, and you can line up in your head that part of what you're here to do is to contribute on a major scale, And if those people are constantly challenging you to do so, you're going to be happy for the rest of your life. You will be really wealthy. Yeah, you'll grow financially, beyond a shadow of a doubt, since those people are people you're contributing and supporting in that way, but you'll also be wealthy inside, mentally, emotionally, socially, spiritually, physically, all those different areas. And for most of my life, I've been a team player. I've had visions since I was about 5 years old. I know it sounds corny, but I've had visions of seeing myself affecting tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands, millions of people. And I've always had that sense of mission inside myself. So I was the kid in school who, no matter what, you had a problem, I was there to help. And I got a lot of great juice out of that. And recently, in recent years, I finally figured out why, because somewhere inside my head, I linked up, boy, if you can really help people change their lives, then they'll love you. And I thought, I like being loved. I didn't do it consciously, but unconsciously. And I know better now. I don't have to do that to be loved, but I'm really glad how that shaped my destiny. Because it made me believe, gosh, if I'm going to help other people, then I got to be like a scout. I got to run ahead and find out what works and bring it back. And so that's what I've done for most of my life. That's why I read 700 books. It was out of the desire to be loved. And I'd be curious if you looked at your life and you looked at the things you're doing and things you give the most intensity to, if you dug down deep to find out why you're really doing it. Why did you decide to become a doctor? Why did you decide to really get in the healthcare field? Why did you decide to do what you do? If you dig down real deep and find out all that you do, maybe that's one of the major desires you have, that desire to connect. And out of that desire for me, I was doing anything I could to help people. And right after I got out of high school, as I started really absorbing all these different technologies, and I've taken a whole series of technologies now and developed a system I'm going to be teaching you again over the next 9 months called neuroassociative conditioning. That's the science I've developed. And I selected those words very specifically. It's how to condition your nervous system so that it associates a sense of feeling and meaning that drives you forward on a consistent basis, to change the associations that hold you back. And out of all this material, though, when I first got exposed to things like Ericksonian hypnosis or neurolinguistics, as I got that exposure, I started seeing that I could help people, but not only help people, but I could do it with lightning-like speed. I could take somebody who had a phobia who'd been in therapy 7 years and handle that in 15 minutes to an hour and a half. And that made me feel incredible. And I was like a crazy person in the beginning. I was an evangelist, right? I remember my first class in neurolinguistics. By the end of the day, I was so fired up, so excited, that I was running around trying to find somebody to help. It was like 11:30 at night. So I went to Denny's. I sat down at the bar thing there, I turned to somebody and said, hey, tell me a problem you have. I'll handle it for you, right? And the person looking at this guy with these giant hands going, whoa, excuse me, right? I soon learned that was not the best approach. So I started doing private therapies with anybody. I said, come on, tell me any problem you have. I will handle it right here, right now. Give me an hour and a half, 2 hours max. I'll handle it. No problem. Tell me. And I cranked like crazy. And pretty soon I found when I didn't charge for it, by the way, very few people wanted it. When I charged for it, it's like all of a sudden it was valuable. Then I started raising what I charged for it. It was amazing. I got up to $250 for a session in the first little bit, and all of a sudden I had a line of people this far back. It was amazing. Also, when I charged that much, I had to produce. See, it was free. If I screwed up, it was free. I could say, well, it's free. But when I charged more than anybody else out there, and I got up to $1,500 for a private session, you have to produce. And that demand made me grow like crazy, and it made me do things in a session that people worked on for years, so it was well worth it. But what I started doing is I started doing session after session. I was up in Vancouver, that's where I started, British Columbia, Canada, and I would literally book from the time I woke up to the time I went to sleep with one break for either lunch or dinner, and all I'd do is meet people all day long and handle everything they did. I don't care what it was, I will handle it. And I had this unbelievable intensity. But also what happened was I was feeling this incredible sense of contribution, what my whole life's about. My life's to reach the largest number of people I can in the shortest period of time and to get them to not only know, but to experience they're in complete control of their life right now. Nothing outside themselves. So as I did that and cranked, it felt great. But after a while, what do you think happened? Doing, 7, 8, 9 therapies a day, all day long, day and night, 7 days a week. What do you think happened? Yeah, I started to burn out inside. Plus my brain started going, man, I don't know if I'm really going to be able to reach, large numbers of people this way. So I came up with this brilliant idea. I'll teach other people to do it for themselves. That'd be better anyway. Other than not dependent, I'll do seminars. So I put my first seminar together, and it was unbelievably successful. So then I said, well, we'll do more of these. So the next thing I knew, I was doing these 3-day seminars. I was doing 4 times a month, plus traveling to the cities. And then I had to fill those seminars, so then I had to get up and do these guest events to do that too. And the next thing I knew, I was working virtually every day of the month, 26 to 28 days a month doing these seminars. Now I started doing these seminars, and as you're going to learn as we get into more of the content I'll teach you in the next session we get together, when I start actually teaching you some of these conditioning tools, people would come up to me like on the second day and say, Tony, do you realize what this stuff can do? And I go, well, yes, I do have an idea. They said, but you could take this, and you could take like, a Vietnam vet and totally take away, the stress syndrome he's going through. You could do that in like 20, 30 minutes with this stuff. And I'd say, yeah, I know. And they go, how come you're not doing that? And I'd be here spinning these plates, right, doing all these seminars, doing these private therapies, and I go, okay, and put together this Vietnam vet program. So I'm trying to make the Vietnam vet program, do all these private therapies, and keep these seminars going. Right? So then what happens? Next weekend, I go to another seminar. Somebody come to me on the second day and say, Tony, you realize what this can do? And I go, yeah. And they go, man, do you realize what this do for, like, kids? And they said, gosh, you should do this to kids, learning disabled kids. I mean, you can turn them around. I said, yeah, I've worked a lot. And they said, well, how come you don't have a program for that? And I'm going, oh, well, learning disabled kids, Vietnam vets, private therapies, the Mind Revolution program, the weekend program. Right? And I'm like, ah. So I make it to the next weekend. Somebody says, Tony, how come you're not doing this for business people? Business people deserve this. They need how to connect and get all their crap from the past and stuff. How come you're not doing that? And I'm going, okay, business people, dyslexics, work with the Vietnam vets, do the private therapies, do this. And it got worse and worse and worse. To the point where I was totally, completely, physically burned out, but I was contributing. I was making a difference. I was. Get out of my way so I can make a difference, damn it. And I finally got to the point where I had 4 partners, and I was creating companies like they were coming out my ears. And none of them were real successful, but they were all helping people. They all lost money. It was wonderful. You know, but I was making a difference, and I had not one spare second. And I was numbering my children. It was pretty exciting. So what happens? Well, one day I come in and I'm sitting in the office with my partners. I just got back from this trip, right? I'm only going to be home for half a day, so I got to get all the business done in the middle of that stuff. And here in the meeting, bam, 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 I create another company. My partners turn to me and say, Tony, why don't you take a vacation? I said, no, got to work, got to do this, and this, and that. They said, Tony, we've already made arrangements for you. I said, you don't dare. They said, no, you're really going to love this. They knew I was a baseball fan, right? They said, we've made arrangements for you to go to Vero Beach, Florida, and work out with the Los Angeles Dodgers. I went, that'd be pretty great. I said, no, but I got to work. They said, Tony, if you go, you can model the players. I went, model? Work? Okay. So I go there. What do you think they wanted me to do? They wanted me, to get out of their hair so I could try and get caught up because I was just burning them all out. Secondly, they figured, well, he'll go there, he'll sit back, he'll relax, he'll get tan, he'll get more balance, more mellow. You think that's what I did? No, I got there, I said, you, come here, hit me some ground balls. Shh, boom, hit me another ground ball. Batting practice, boom, 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 boom. I said, you, come here. You're one of the best pitchers in the league, come here, I'm gonna rip you, get up here, let's do this thing. I did not rip him. And people go around going, who is this person? And I was there for the first 3 or 4 days. At the end of the day, people get together, you know, have a drink, chat, you know, with the pub stuff. You think I did that? No, I went back home to my little condo, right, where I brought my computer. Boom, 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 ideas. Boom, 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 boom. Pick on the phone, calling. Got to work. Call my office and go, I thought we got rid of him. Finally, on the 4th day, Tommy Lasorda came to town. Tommy Lasorda is the manager of the LA Dodgers. Now, when I was 13 years old, I wanted to be a baseball player so bad, a pro baseball player, but I got cut from the junior high school team on the last cut. Oh, man, it was terrible. I'd cut my hair real short. I had long hair just so I'd please this guy. My hair was all chopped up, tried everything. I missed the cut. At that point, I made a destiny decision. I said, if I don't make the junior high school team, I may not do very well in the major leagues. So I asked a new question. My new question is, well, what do I love about sports? And I thought it's the people. It's being around all these great people, and they're going for it, and they're passionate, making it happen. It's fun. And they're famous. I'd like to be famous. That'd be fun, wouldn't it? And so I thought, how else can I do that? So I thought I'll become a sportscaster and a sports writer. So I learned to type, and I wrote for interviews, and I went out and I got interviews with people that nobody else did because I was this gutsy, tiny little kid who came there and did whatever it took, 11, 12 years old, 13 years old. And I got interviews with people like Howard Cosell and Woody Hayes and Joe Namath and things like that. Pretty soon the local paper gave me a job. Started writing daily sports at 13 years old. And so I used to go down to the Dodgers and I got them to work with me and I got to go in the dugout and do all the stuff. This little kid running around getting these interviews. So it was kind of a neat phenomenon. People liked it. It was different. And I used my age to my maximum ability. All right? So the bottom line is, back in those days, Tommy Lasorda was the third base coach. I hadn't seen him in years. And, you know, I grew 8 inches in 1 year. I'm a little different than I was way back then. I thought, you know, I was in the middle of all this stuff, and he was coming to speak that night, and I thought, even though I have all this stuff to do, I got to go here and speak, connect with him, see if he remembers me. It'll be fun. I thought, then I'll come back and work. So I go to see him that night, and we connect, he remembers me, this great time, everything's great. I'm about to leave, and just as I'm about to leave, this man walks up on stage. His name is Carl Erskine. He's one of the original Brooklyn Dodgers. Anybody know anything about the Brooklyn Dodgers? Yeah, I didn't know very much about it. Obviously, I wasn't around when they were here, but bottom line is he walks up on stage like this. He walks up and he goes, "Gentlemen, we're showing a film tonight. It's called The Boys of Summer. I suggest you attend." And I'm like, what's going on? And I look around the room, and I look this one guy, what's going on? He goes, I look around the room, and all of a sudden these professional players get up and they start walking down this hall in this deep trance. So I'm looking at this thing, and I'm thinking, this is weird. This is really weird. But I thought, but I got to go back and work. But then I thought, oh, this is making me incredibly curious. I got to figure out what this is. The next thing I know, I'm walking down the hall in this deep trance. So I walk in the hall, I sit down, right, and they turn on this film called The Boys of Summer. And as it first comes on, it's about the Brooklyn Dodgers. And I thought, I like the LA Dodgers, I don't like the Brooklyn Dodgers, I'm out of here. But then just as I was about to get up and leave, I remember that guy's face and the intensity he had when he said, you should watch this film. And it made me stay. And I'm glad I did, because that film changed my life. And maybe in relating the film back to you, it can offer you some new possibilities as well. Because the film was about the Brooklyn Dodgers, but it was really about something else. Something much more powerful than a specific group of baseball players. It was the power of team that really came through in that film. The power that happens when people absolutely bond and support each other. And if you're not aware of it, the Brooklyn Dodgers are probably one of the most important social forces in the structure of our society. Because at that time, as you probably know, back in those days, large numbers of people judged other people not by the quality of their character, but by the color of their skin. And they saw that as separate and less than. Unfortunately, the Brooklyn Dodgers, there was an owner there, a man who was truly a what kind of player? Team player. His name Branch Rickey. Branch Rickey saw that in our society, and he couldn't stomach it. It disgusted him to see other human beings treating other human beings like they were less than or not a part of. And unlike a lot of people, instead of just saying, I don't like this, he said, this must change. Now, a lot of people say that, but he also said something else. I must change it. And he said a third thing that you must be able to say to yourself for you to really create change, I can change it. And you know why? Because he just asked, how could I make a difference here? He kept asking that question, how could I make a difference in this area? Instead of saying there's no way, it's too big a problem, he said, how can I make a difference? And you know what? If you keep asking, eventually you'll what? Receive. And he got the answer. One day he got it. He said, what if I got a gentleman who was a black player from the minor leagues, because at that time, if your skin was black, you can't play in the major leagues because obviously you don't have as much talent because of the color of your skin. Makes total sense. So what happened? He said, what if I got a black player to come up into the major leagues, and I broke the color barrier, and he went out, and I got somebody good enough that he could show that it was not a matter of talent, it wasn't a matter of skin, that there was just as much talent, that it was all just judgments, because you can tell people all day they're wrong. That won't do it. The best way to change somebody's belief is give them an experience that violates their limiting beliefs. He said, it's not going to be easy. He said, because I got to find somebody who's willing to take probably more abuse than anybody in history. Now, most people wouldn't go through that just for themselves to say, I'm a player in the major leagues. He knew he had to find what kind of player? Team player. Somebody who wouldn't just be playing for himself, but for something bigger than oneself. And that's really the key to lifelong happiness, finding something that's bigger than you, that you're here to help support. Bottom line is, he searched for a year and a half before he found the right guy. What was his name? That's right, Jackie Robinson. If you were going to recruit somebody, you would recruit Jackie. You know why? Here was a man who had passion, intensity, power. This guy could hit a baseball, he could steal bases, he could do anything. He was incredibly bright. He was a leader, an officer in the Army, a UCLA graduate, a man who was absolutely committed. But most importantly, he was a team player. And he pulled him in to sit down with him, and Branch Rickey told him, he said, look, this is what I want you to do. And he explained to him what it was about. And he told him, he said, if you're going to do this, we got one shot at this. He said, you got to promise me that for the first 3 years that you're here, that no matter what people say, no matter what they do, you will not fight back. Because if you do, they'll say, see, he can't take it. And what will happen is there won't be another black player for at least 10 years to recover. It's all on your shoulders. Are you ready to play at that level of game? Are you ready to play not just for the black community, but for everybody? Are you here on a mission, or are you here just to hit a baseball? And Robinson responded full on. He agreed. And I don't know how, because he took more abuse than anybody in the history of modern day sports. I mean, how do you think people responded when he went out there? You know what happened. They called him every name in the book, but they did more than that. They psychically tried to torture him. I mean, did anything they could possibly do. Call him every name. They sent him letters before the game started. Said, look, nigger, you get on the field today, we got a gun, we're going to blow you away right from the stands. In fact, the big joke on the Brooklyn Dodgers in those days was, don't stand too close to Jackie. Pretty intense. It was a known fact in the league. The guys would come up. First of all, people would come up almost every game. They come up to him, there's like a ritual. Some of the guys on the other team, they walk up to him and call him names, or they walk him to get right in his face and say, you know what, I really support you. Or I really like you. I don't care you're a nigger. And they come up real close, and they'd be chewing tobacco in their mouth, and they'd spit all over him. And he had to sit there and take that turn away. And they'd say, hey, look, I'm sorry, that's uncalled for. They act like they're going to wipe it off, and they'd spit all over his face. He had to wipe that off, turn and walk away, without getting uptight, without striking back. He's a better man than me. I mean, I can't believe he turned away and they say, oh, you're a yellow nigger, never seen a yellow nigger before. And he'd walk off and handle it. Intense, very intense. Known fact in the league, players commonly, shortstop, second baseman, the night before playing the Dodgers, would sharpen their spikes till they're razor sharp. Because they knew that Jackie would get on, and whenever he got on, he was going to go for second, he was going to try and steal. And if they couldn't tag him out on the way down, they cut him open. Slashed his legs, he was scarred for life over his legs by people who deliberately tried to harm him. How's that for team? How do you think the Brooklyn Dodgers responded? Thinking about, oh, we got the first Negro in the history of modern sports. Isn't this exciting? No. So what's the matter with Branch Rickey? Is he crazy? I ain't playing with no nigger, no black man. What are you, crazy or an animal? He's an animal. I'm not playing with no animal. How would I explain that to my family? And you know what? They threatened to go on strike. Branch Rickey told them, no problem. Go on strike. I own your contracts. You'll never play baseball again for the rest of your life. What's that called? Leverage. I said, we'll play. Interesting. They said, we'll play, but we're not going to support him. And you know what? They abused him in every way. His own team abused him. Called him every name in the book, isolated him, not talked to him, tried everything. Cut up his uniform, destroyed his glove, spit on him, did all the same things the other teams did. His own team. One day, Jackie went to put on his dress shoes after a game, put them on, cut his feet wide open. Somebody rigged razor blades to at the insides of his shoes. His own team. What do you do? Have you ever been in that place where it felt like your own team was out to get you? What do you do? What do you do when no one's supporting? You know what Jackie did? He still played team even though no one else was. There's a man of character. He gave 1,000% even though no one else there was supporting him. No one. He was playing for something more. More than the moment, more than the people. He realized that they didn't understand what they were doing. He played a more spiritual game. He gave 1,000%. You know what's interesting? He did it every single day, no matter what. No matter what. And when you do that every single day, pretty soon you get good. He started getting results. And he got so good that pretty soon some of his worst enemies became some of his greatest fans. In fact, because he did more and more and more, and it became clear he's going to be Rookie of the Year, his first year out, a black man? How is that possible? People started changing pretty radically around him. Images and beliefs, everything, because of one man's decision and resolve. He had a phrase that he used quite often. He said, the greatest revenge is massive success. It was so successful that at one point, even the Brooklyn Dodgers had to pull together a meeting. Captain of the team, put them all together. He pulled everybody in except for Robinson. He turned to the guys and said, gentlemen, we got a problem in case you haven't noticed. We got a guy on our team that's breaking all the records. He's got more hits, scored more runs, stole more bases, going to be Rookie of the Year, and we treat him like he's dirt. We treat him like he's the enemy. He's helping us win the few games we're winning. We're not winning games. We're too busy trying to figure out how to piss this guy off, hurt him, struggle him, fight him, beat him up. He said, that's not changing anything. He said, I want to know who here is willing to support this guy, or are we going to get rid of him? Let's either decide to get rid of him and do it once and for all, or I want to know who's here willing to support this man as a friend, as a teammate, regardless of the color of his skin. Who here is willing to support? It was just dead silent. And finally, one guy kind of got up to his feet. I think the first guy was a man named Preacher Rowe, who was a pitcher on the team. He said, I support him, Captain. He said, I think it's disgusting what we've done here. I mean, this man has given his all. He's played better than anybody here. He's won more games for me than I care to count. He said, I support him. I don't care about the color of his skin. He's a man. He deserves our respect. He deserves our support. And Pee Wee Reese, the captain of the team, said, hey, thanks a lot. Who else? It was just quiet. I said, come on, who else? As one guy kind of struggles to his feet, and he said, I'll support him. He said, he's the best player I've ever seen. He's done more for us than I care to count. Skin's a little dark, but other than that, he's okay. Next guy gets up and supports. By the time the fourth person supports, this one guy goes crazy. Jumps up and goes, what are you guys, crazy? He's a nigger, he's a black man, he's an animal. Just because he can hit a baseball, so can an ape. How would you explain this to your family and friends? There's no way. I ain't playing with no nigger. No niggers on my team. I'll do whatever it takes. I'm getting him around. I'm getting away from our team. No niggers on our team. No way. I'm not playing with no nigger. And you can imagine the intensity in the room. And Pee Wee Reese just walked right up to the guy, looked him right in the eyes, and said, if that's how you feel, then maybe you aren't part of this team anymore. 2 weeks later, the Dodgers traded that man away. Something interesting happened. A group of men came together and played team full out, where their focus was not about how could they get a better hit or what could they do with their life. Their primary focus became, how do we support each other to be the best we possibly can? When each guy got up to bat, every guy was right there next to him, in his body practically, trying to help hit that ball. They supported each other. When a guy screwed up, they came and pulled him aside and said, hey, it's all right. They created this unbelievable bond, and you know what? The results are legendary. They started winning game after game after game after game after game. They started going to championship after championship after championship. World Series after World Series after World Series, and finally, they beat the Yankees. If the film would have ended at that moment, it would be an unbelievable story of the power of a real team. That 1 + 1 is not equal to 2. It creates something more. When people totally care and bond with each other, they create something more than they were individually. But you know what? That's not the part of the film that affected me the most. What affected me the most is the film ends, and it seems like it's going to end, but it really doesn't, with them winning the championship. But then all of a sudden, it moves forward to today. And they interview these men 35 years later to find out what their lives are like. That's where I got a lesson I won't forget for the rest of my life. They're talking to these guys, and they show this first guy who's a great player, right? And I said, so how's it going? I said, what was it like being on the Brooklyn Dodgers? And it's like the guy's face lit up, like light was like screaming out of his face, And he started talking about all these things. And he's just talking and talking and talking. Do you think he talked about the hits he made, the catches he caught, the World Series ring he had? You think that's what he talked about? No, there's one word that he talked about over and over and over again. Us and the guys, here's what we did. The what? Team, 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 team. And as he's saying team, you can just see it come and say team, 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 team. I mean, so amazing. And then they ask him something else. And, they ask another guy, what was it like on Brooklyn Dodgers? It's like turning a light on inside these guys. Each one of them is just like beaming. You can just feel it go right through you. But then they ask these guys individually one at a time, so what are you doing today? Interesting. All of a sudden, this first guy is like, team, 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 team. He goes, well, I'm president of the bank. What? He's looking depressed, right? I thought, that's weird. And you know what? All these people are happy until they start talking about today. Except one guy. He wasn't happy the whole time. They went to the second guy and they said, what was it like? It was team, 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 team. And they said, what are you doing today? And the guy goes, well, I'm a multimillionaire and I own 9 companies and travel around the world and I'm very happy. I'm looking at this and I go, what's wrong with this picture? And then I got it. Because one after another, I watched this change happen. I got it. They no longer feel like they're part of a what? Yeah. Interesting, huh? And they've lost the juice. See, if you think like getting to the top by yourself is really going to make you happy, think again. And some people say it's lonely at the top. It's only lonely at the top if you don't take your team with you. That's when it's lonely. It's true the bottom is more crowded than the top. But there's plenty of room at the top for you and your team. And you know what's interesting? I just looked at these guys and I thought, guys, president of the bank, he's already team captain. But see, can you be on a team and not feel like you're part of a team, yes or no? Yes. Who's responsible for you feeling like you're part of a team? Who? You are. You're responsible to create that feeling, that connection. And they weren't doing it. Interesting. Interesting. They asked this other guy, so what was it like being on Brooklyn Dodgers? The only one who didn't smile and beam when they said it. What was it like being on Brooklyn Dodgers? It was great. What do you remember? He said, I remember that catch I made in the World Series probably saved the game. Those hits, I got that one hit in the second game, probably made the difference in the whole series. He said, and I'm still not in the Hall of Fame. You know, maybe we'll get smarter this year. Guys look so angry. He said, it doesn't bother me though. His face is so incongruent, it's unbelievable. The man never mentions one time the word what? So, because everyone else has, the interviewer finally says to him, he says, well, you know, how'd you feel about, you know, the guys, the family, the team you guys had there? Well, how'd you feel about playing with those guys? He goes, well, to tell you the truth, I never really felt like I was part of the team. Interesting. He said, didn't bother me, though. He never felt like he's part of the team. He's been angry the whole time. Didn't enjoy it even when he played. So you know what they did? The interview went back and interviewed some of the other Brooklyn Dodgers to find out, you know, what was the deal. They said, you know, how did you get along with this guy? What did you think of this guy? And invariably their response was things like, he was really a great player. He was one of the best players that ever played the game. I hope he gets in the Hall of Fame. So the interview finally says, well, how did you feel about him? And invariably the response he got was something to the tune of, well, you know what? He was a great player, but he never let you get close to him. It's the kind of guy, if you said, great job, he'd say, shut up. Or if you pat him on the back, he'd smack you. He said, don't you touch me. You know, he invited him to parties. He never came to one party in 7 years. I mean, you know, you don't have to come to every party, but he never came to one. He's kind of more of an isolated guy, more of an individual, wasn't really a team player, but he's a great person, I mean, great player anyway. So they went back to this guy and they said, hey, look, you know, these guys said they really liked you, but you didn't let them get close. You know, you didn't come to one party in 7 years. He goes, oh yeah? The parties were all in New York City. What was I supposed to do? You know, drive to New York City, take the train to New York City? The interviewer said, well, Preacher Row lives twice as far from New York City from you, and he never missed one party. Oh, am I supposed to be like Preacher Row? I told you, it doesn't bother me. Why is this guy so angry? Because he's never felt like he was part of a what? Do you think it ends with him? He says, I got a tumor now. Yeah. Nobody cares. Oh, they're off in all their worlds. Truth is, they tried to help him, but he wouldn't take the money or support. He's also broke. Why would somebody be broke? Maybe because they've never learned to work with a team. Most intense part, though, I think, is looking at, right after that, they interview his son. They turn to his son and say, what's it like having a father who's a, you know, potential Hall of Famer? His son goes, it's fine. He goes, well, are you proud of your dad? Aren't you excited about who he is and what he's done? He goes, yeah, I'm real happy for my father. And he's so incongruent, the interviewer says, well, I got to tell you, you don't look like you're very happy. Because you really want to know? I can just hear the interviewer thinking, no, I really don't. You know? He says, you know, my father's selfish. He said, I don't care about my father. He doesn't care about me. See, my whole life, all it was him, his this, his that, he'll show me his that. He never even cared about me. He never even made me feel like I was part of the family. He never made his son feel like he was part of his what? It was just his work. And his son hates him. So the interview is like trying to find a way to turn this around, as you can imagine. He says, well, is your relationship any better than it used to be? And the kid says, well, yeah, I guess it's better. So what made it better? He says, you really want to know? Interviewer's probably saying, no, I really don't. I wish I hadn't asked this question. He goes, well, yeah. He said, finally, what turned it around a little bit? Finally, when I went to Vietnam. When I went to Vietnam and this happened to me. He's got this rage and he starts crying simultaneously. Finally, when this happened to me. And they start to pan down his body. And they get to where his knees are supposed to be. And there's nothing there. So finally, when I got my legs blown off, finally when that happened, my dad came to me. He finally came to me, and he actually held me and cried. He actually held me and said, I love you, son. He finally said it when I got him blown off. Why do you have to wait till then? People do almost anything to know people care. People do almost anything to know that they're part of your team. If you don't give a child positive attention for what they do well, will they do something negative to get your attention? Know you care? Aren't adults just big children? Will a person steal to be part of a team? Some people? Yes or no? Yes or no? People take drugs, smoke cigarettes to be part of a team? Some people you say, you're off this team, you're fired. They come back the next day with a shotgun and they kill every human being in the post office they worked. And then they kill themselves. Is this to say, if I can't be part of this team, then no one can? People do anything to be part of a team. Anything. And if you don't let them know you care, do some people get sick to know that you care? Not consciously, but unconsciously? How many think that's possible? It's more than possible. In fact, getting sick, if you can make it to the hospital, you're really on a roll. Because you make it to the hospital, that means like people will show up who haven't seen you in a long time. They'll cry. And if you get near death now, you're really on a roll now. Because people who've not seen you in years will come to you and they'll cry and they'll tell you they love you. And that's much more acceptable than, let's say, going crazy, for example. That's not as acceptable. Think people's unconsciouses have picked that up? Some of them have. If you don't let people know you care, they may do something really stupid, not consciously or unconsciously, to find out whether you do or not. Don't let this be you or anybody you care about. You got to take care of your team. And you can't say, well, they know I love them, or I tell them I love them. That isn't enough. You got to find unique ways to let people know you care. You say, well, I don't know if I'm part of a team. Everybody in this room is part of a team. Not just the practice. One of the teams you're on is called your family. Whether you feel connected to them or not, that's your responsibility, and that's your opportunity. One of the teams you're on is wherever you live in the country. One of the teams you're on is this country, part of a team called America, United States of. One of the teams you're on is called humanity. Everybody's on a team. The only question is, are you swinging the bat or are you sitting on the bench? Some people have been sitting on the bench so long their butt is stapled to the bench. And the way you know that is, it's pretty boring when you're on the bench, isn't it? It's sitting there on the bench. So usually you buy a TV. And pretty soon the TV can't keep you away from the boredom, so you buy a refrigerator. And you fill it with a variety of chemicals you used to call food. And you consume them in mass quantities in between those games that other people play who are on teams that you watch. There's so many teams you're part of. The only question is, are you going to play? And some people say, yeah, but what if I swing the bat and I strike out? What if I swing and miss? At least you swung the bat. Let the record book show you won, let it show you lost. Let it show strikeouts, let it show hits, but don't let it show you didn't play. How would you ever possibly explain that? Some people go, but I'm just one person. What could I do? I just work in this little dental office and answer phones and shit. What could I do? Every human being you meet is an opportunity. What if you're going through and you're grocery shopping? You already have the chance because you're there every day in a place to affect people. You have a gift that very few people have. You have a context, an environment that is about helping people, that's there to remind you, and you get paid to do it. I mean, There couldn't be a better place to make a difference. But let's pretend you didn't even have that opportunity. You were like, in your own world, except when you went to like grocery stores. Like when you escaped the grocery stores. And you're going through the grocery store, and as you're going through and putting all your chemicals on that thing as it goes around the corner there, you see this person who's like in a deep trance, who's like, they don't even do this anymore, actually. They just run these little things. Now they really don't have to think, just run these things. Don't even have to think to figure out what button to push anymore, just run this little thing. And you see this person like this. Could you make a difference here? Could you make a difference in the world right here, yes or no? Yeah. What if he looks at the person who's like in this deep trance, looking kind of depressed and out, and he turned to them and said, "Excuse me." And they come out of the trance for a moment. They go, "What? Could I see your teeth?" They go, "What?" "Oh, I just like to see people smile." All right. You say, "Great uniform. I like that uniform. Pretty cool. Looking good." Would that make them maybe smile or laugh? Or at least get confused? And if they smile or laugh, you make them feel good, and they kind of smile now, and they feel good for a second, they realize it, and you say, "Listen, I know you must work incredibly hard. Just want to know how I appreciate what you're doing for me." Just want you to know who you are makes a difference. And I'm not being religious about it, but I just want to thank you. I come through this place all the time, and I usually just barely chat with you, but thanks for letting me be part of your team. Keep those teeth showing. What do you think will happen? This person's kind of feeling pretty good, right? What do you think, how are they going to treat the next person who comes by? The next person will be sitting there, putting their chemicals on the tray there, and going in there, looking around, they'll go, "Excuse me, can I see your teeth?" And if they affect that person like that, does it end there? No. Will that person go out and affect other people based on the state they're in? Sure. Will their state affect the way they treat other people? Yes or no? Sure. And will that affect other people? And will that continue beyond that? You better believe it. It's called a processional effect. When you drop that stone in the water, it doesn't stop at impact. There's this ripple effect that affects the entire pond. Some people, see, start to realize that little things are what make the difference. Little things make the difference if they're little things about supporting other human beings. Sometimes one word you say to someone can change their entire life. I found out I've worked with 250,000 people in live seminars. Yeah, about 10 years I've been doing it. I got to tell you, some of the simplest things I've done have changed people's lives. It's like, it doesn't take a lot for us to change. It can be the next thing you hear, the next book you read, the next conversation you have with somebody. It can be a smile can change someone. People don't need a lot. They just need it at the right time. And the way to make it the right time is do it all the time. Then your chances go up. The more people around, your chances go up. Think about it. I was on the road and cranking really, really hard, and I was really getting burnt out. I got back home, and I took my kids on the road for the first few years before I finally balanced my life out, because I thought schooling was great, but I thought education was more important. And so they got a chance to travel around the world and have some pretty unique experiences, but came back home and got with my family and decided we wanted to go out, and there's this place called the Chart House. I don't know if they have those out here or not, but it's a nice place. It's usually on the water. Great big salad bar, great place to go. And we usually go there, so we went there, and we always get great service, but this day we got really incredible service. I mean, this young man was an absolute light. I mean, like, somebody just lit up the room, literally. Walk in, just beaming. You felt incredible just to be in his presence. And it was like healing to be around him. I just felt like alive again. And he took such incredible care and interest and love, helped my son out with some things, and he was incredible. I was so touched. I thought, boy, I want to take care of him. And I thought, I want to give him this huge tip. I thought, well, I'll give him a huge tip, but that's not the same as giving him an experience of how much we appreciate him in a sense of team. So I came up with an idea. I did a couple things. First thing I did is when he came back over, I said, "Excuse me." He said, "Yes, can I help you?" I said, "Yes, I need to see your manager." He looked at me and said, "Is everything okay?" I said, "Yes, I need to see your manager." Because, see, I understand that with contrast, people appreciate things a little more. He said, "Well, is there anything I can do for you?" I said, "No, I need to see your manager, and I'd like to see him now." He said, "Oh, I'm sorry, okay." You just see him freaking out inside, right? Running over there to get the manager. Goes over and talks to the manager. The manager looks at the table and get the manager, gets one of those looks like, "Oh, no," right? So the manager walks over and says, can I help you? I understand you want to see me. And I stand up and I said, yes. I said, I'm Tony Robbins, and I shook his hand. I said, listen, I travel around the country for a living. I'm almost never home. I live here in San Diego. When I finally come home, I want to be able to go to a restaurant and just enjoy myself with my family. I want to be served well. I'm going to tell you something. Every single time I come here, I get the most incredible service I can possibly imagine. He says, oh, I'm really sorry. And then he finally got it. He was like, he was tranced out, right? He did not deal with that at all. And I smiled a little bit, right? And he said, well, and I said, I also, though, want you to know that tonight is an exception. He said, oh, I'm really sorry. I said, this kid, Chris, that you got serving us, I said, he's the exception to all the people we've had. I said, we've gotten better service tonight than any time in any restaurant I have ever been in my life, and I travel and live in restaurants. He went, I'll be sure to correct him. And I said, I also just want to thank you because I know for these people to be here in this place, you must be one heck of a manager. And I also wanted you to know how great this young man is because I said, I don't know if you're giving him full hours or whatever, but you better not lose him. He's the best you got. And you got almost every person I've ever been here has been fantastic. So I just want to thank you for allowing us to be in this environment. He almost got a tear in his eye. He said, thanks a lot. He said, I'm going to have some fun with it. So sure enough, he walks over and I see him point to Chris. He's modeling me, right? And so I see him over there talking to Chris, you know, like this, and all of a sudden Chris goes, oh. Right? Meanwhile, I'm thinking, how else can we make this fun, right? Good question to ask. How else can we make this fun? How else can we acknowledge this kid? How else can we make him feel really loved? And so I turned to my daughter Jolie and I said, Jolie, ask that table up there if they're getting like good service or great service. If they say great service, tell them when he comes back over here, we want to stand up in the middle of the restaurant and give him a standing ovation. Right? So Jolie turns to them and says, you know, my father wanted to know, are you guys getting good service or great service, right? Oh, we're getting great service. This kid's incredible. And they're all enthusiastic. She goes, well, we'd like to give him a standing ovation. And they went, And there's one woman at the table said, we'll do it. A leader in the group, right? So sure enough, Chris is coming over, and he's like so excited now because he's like relieved also, you know. He's coming over smiling. Also, we stand in the middle of the restaurant and we're going, Chris, 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 bang on the table, Chris, 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 Chris. The whole place looking around. He's just beaming. See, that's team. See, you need to be creative about how to support team. And when you support team, who else do you support? Yourself. You make life. That's lifestyle. Lifestyle doesn't come from money. Lifestyle comes from living creatively in a way where you love and support the people around you. That's lifestyle. That's what makes the difference. You know? Interesting about Chris, next time we come to the restaurant, guess what? We're checking in. Chris says, Mr. Robbins, I'll take this table. We get service like you cannot believe. And we become best friends. 3 or 4 nights later, I bring in a whole group of people, about 30, 35 people. We're all there having this huge dinner, taking over a portion of the restaurant. The bill comes. Guess what it says on the bottom? No charge. It says, thank you, Mr. Robbins. We love you. From the family at the Chart House. Pretty incredible. What you put out comes back tenfold. I also made this family. My daughter Jolie just turned 16 at the time. Guess what? She wanted to get a job. She wasn't 16 yet. She's 15. Guess where she works? Not anymore. She's moved on a little bit, but at that time she went to work at the Chart House. Gave her a job, part of the family. And now Chris works for Robbins Research. He's one of our top customer service people who takes people's calls. And he's responsible for thousands of people hearing my work, part of our family. All because one day we have. All because we decided to acknowledge somebody we cared about. Somebody who was a stranger, but we realized wasn't a stranger, as part of our team. And you know what? I do all these things not because I'm such a great person. I do all these things because I know what the alternative is. I know that what I'm giving is what I want. And that film is what did it to me, because I got to tell you something. Watching that guy talk about his tumor and watching his kid talking about, you know, I hate my dad, doesn't bother me though, modeling him. And watching all those guys who had all this joy and love in their life, but who are depressed now because they're president of the bank or multimillionaires. And you know what? I have a nice contrast. There's a guy named Roy Campanella. How many know who I'm talking about? On the film, Roy Campanella was on the film, and Roy Campanella was there in Vero Beach with me. I went and spent the next half day with him. Because Roy Campanella, if you're not aware of it, was one of the earliest black players in the league, one of the most incredible people you ever meet. Incredible athlete, catcher, a real team player. As a catcher, he really drove the team. Phenomenal man. Totally loving, happy-go-lucky guy. At the peak of his career, I mean, he's the kind of guy, one time he got his suit stolen while they were on the train going places. So the next day, there at the field, it said on the sign, there was an area that was an advertisement for a company that did men's clothiers, and it says, hit the sign, win a suit. So he called it and hit it twice. And we're talking about an incredible athlete. At the peak of his career, not on his way down, not on his way up, at the peak, he made about a 5-foot or 5-inch mistake that ended up becoming a 5-foot mistake when his wheel caught, crashed his car, and became a quadriplegic overnight. Not a quadriplegic, but waist down overnight. Can you imagine if your whole life was tied to your body, and all of a sudden that's gone? And you know what's interesting? Nobody thought he would come out of the coma. No possible way. It was just too intense. They thought for sure he would die. He not only came out of the coma, but I went to him the next day after watching this film, and I said, hey, Campy, mind if I talk to you about like what happened to you years ago? I said, if you're not comfortable with it, I'm okay. He said, no. He said, I'll talk to you about it. I said, I'd be really curious. What happened? When you woke up, what first happened in your head? Because I wanted to model him so I might be able to help other people. And that's what I told him. I said, help people, and maybe if you tell me what you did, I could help somebody else to make it through it. He said, well, he said, I woke up, and he said, I tried to move my right arm. And he said, nothing happened. He said, so I tried to move my left arm. And he said, nothing happened. He said, I tried to move my right leg. Nothing happened. My left leg, nothing happened. He said, so I said to myself, Campy, you're bad. I said, so what happened? What pulled you through? How did you make it? Because nobody thought you'd make it. What made you make it? He said, I had to. I said, why'd you have to? He said, I had to because I had to make it back so I could take care of my family. His what? His team. People do more for others than they'll ever do for themselves. I thought, how incredible. Here's this guy. He said, yeah, I had to. I had to get back. And not only had to get back and get healthy, but I had to get myself a job and go to work again. He's sitting here in bed. He can't move anything. He's already figuring out how he can take care of his family. And he's a wheelchair. And you know what? He found out how. He went to work for the Dodgers. Dodgers total class organization. They found a place where he could truly add value, where it wasn't charity, it was really adding value. To go through all of that and still be totally alive. And you ask him, how do you feel about life? His life is so great. And he means it. That's being spiritual. And the film ends. The last thing I see in the film is Campanella says, life is so great. And the other guy going, doesn't bother me. And then it fades to black. Doesn't actually end that way, but it sounds a lot better. And you know what happened when it was over? I found myself, I'm sitting in a chair, and I was just weeping. I was tears streaming down my face, and I was crying. I was so moved emotionally. A friend of mine was there, and he came over and said, hey, you want to talk? I said, no, I need to go on a walk. And I walked that night. It was a full moon out, down in Vero Beach, Florida, walking across these fields where legends have played for almost 100 years. And I thought to myself, I said, this feels so painful. And why do I have this pain? It's not just the film. What's really going on? Why does it hurt so bad inside? Why am I crying so much? And I realized I was a lot like those guys. I was living my life. I was giving my all. I was making a difference, but I wasn't experiencing the juice myself. And my desire to contribute, I forgot there's somebody else I should be contributing to, too. But I was getting to the point where I was so burnt out. Somebody had a problem. Tell me what it is. I will handle it. It was like a machine. But I wasn't connected. I was getting the job done, but I wasn't connected. And I swore I wouldn't let that happen. And I thought to myself, what do I need to do? What is the message that's supposed to come from this for me? What do I need to remember for the rest of my life that will change my life forever? And then I got it. Everyone's on your team. And make sure whoever you meet, you let them know they're on your team. But how do I do that? How do I do that? Like when I'm running around, I'm busy and I'm doing whatever. And I got it. one way to do it is when somebody says to me, hey, thanks a lot, I used to go, well, thank you. People come up and I have the good fortune of people coming up because of the types of seminars I normally do, or I'm rarely with less than 500 people, 1,000 people, 2,000 people in a day. And when you contribute to people and they feel value, they come up and people are wonderful. People are so loving. If you give them half a chance, they come up and hug me and tell me how much they love me and stuff, and it's like, God, what a deal. But you know what? It was almost overwhelming. I couldn't handle it in the initial times. And so they'd say, God, thank you so much. And I go, thank you. Well, yeah, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thanks, thanks. But I thought, you know what? I got to get it. And I got to also let people know I appreciate their thanking me. So that one way I could do that is when somebody says thank you, instead of saying thank you, is try as much as possible, just take an extra moment saying, thank you, I appreciate that. And just an extra moment of connection before I move. I thought I can do it in the grocery store. I can do it in the restaurants. I also thought, I need to get a plan. I can't do this hope it works out. I need to create a plan on how to do this with my family and my friends. And that's my assignment for you. My assignment for you is real simple. I want you tonight, on the way home, on the flight of the car, or when you get there, I want to give you a couple assignments. Number one, I want you to sit down and write down all the people you consider to be part of your team, your inner team, your family, your friends, people closest to you, your business associates, all those people that are part of your inner team. I want you to write down all their names. And next to each person, I want you to write something unique you're going to do in the next 6 months to let them know how much you care. Something unique. It could be a unique phone call. It could be a touch. It could be a gift. It could be a thought. It might be just a special way of saying, I love you. I don't know what it is, but something unique so they know how much you care. You can't guess or assume they do. That'll change your life. In fact, I want to give you a little stretch also. How many of you have somebody in your life who at one time in your life you had a relationship with, either a man, woman, or a business associate or whatever, a friendship, and then something happened and it changed that relationship and the relationship ended on a really negative note and you've never talked again? How many have somebody like this in your life? Raise your hand. Almost all of you. Great. Here's your assignment for tomorrow. You are to call this person. Look at the state changes in this audience. This is a team stretch. You're not doing it because it's fun or it's easy. You're doing it to really develop your team muscles. It's for you. When you call this person, I want you to do the following. 1, identify who you are. Say, this is Tony. Remember me? I certainly remember you. Identify yourself. 2, identify or acknowledge the way the relationship ended. Identify yourself and then acknowledge how the relationship ended. Say, I know the last time we talked was not very nice. Acknowledge how it ended. 3, let them know you care. Let them know, in spite of what happened, that you care about them as a person or you appreciate the time you did have, at least at that time. Hi, this is Tony. Remember me? I certainly remember you. Hey, listen, you're probably thinking I'm weird. Why am I calling? I know the last time we talked was pretty terrible. But I'm only calling for one reason. I'm just calling to tell you that while I've got a lot of painful memories, you knew you were right, I knew I was right, I'm calling for one reason. That's just simply to tell you that the time we did spend was invaluable to me. I really care about you. And I really enjoyed being a part of your team. And I'm not asking for anything back. I'm just calling to tell you that. And have a nice night. Bye. Click. What would that do to their brain? What would it do to your brain to make the call? It's called a stretch. All those who won't do this, say aye. All those opposed, motion's carried. Keep your word. And answering machines don't count. How many have somebody in your life who you didn't end the relationship in a negative way, but it's just, you got so busy in your life that you didn't call for a while and they didn't call for a while, and the more you didn't call, it's kind of like the commercial says, you kind of drifted away. How many got something like that in your life? They're your second phone call. You're to call this person. This one will be fun though, right? Same thing. Identify who you are, acknowledge how the relationship and what happens. Hey, listen, this is Tony. Listen, we haven't talked forever. I just got to tell you something, we haven't talked in so long it feels weird to even call. But I just want to let you know how much I care about you, and that even though we haven't talked in all this time, and even if we don't talk now or in the future, I still want you to know that I value the fact that I've been part of your team. I really care about you a lot. And if you don't have time to talk, I understand, but I just want you to know I love you. See you around. Bye. Whoa, wait, let's talk. And you may find yourself bonding with somebody that's a major part of your past and your life. I always want to make that call. Say aye. Aye. Okay, good. Those opposed. Good. And then thirdly, I want you to make your list, and I want you to come up with a unique way. And when I say unique way, it's got to be different for everyone. For example, I got 4 kids. They're in every age group. I mean, I've got every age group. They've gone through every phase. I mean, it's pretty amazing. And 3 of my children obviously were not my blood children. But they are. I mean, there's no difference now. But in the beginning, it was pretty intense. I mean, my daughter cried hysterically. She's the second oldest when my wife and I got married because, this man was coming into her life. Now, I mean, we couldn't separate us. We were so close, it's incredible. But for example, my 6-year-old, do you let him know that he's loved the same way you let my 22-year-old know? I don't think so. See, my 6-year-old, I'll never forget, when he was about 4, is when I started really being creative about how do I really make him feel totally loved in unique ways. And try to spend as much time as possible, but I also realized I could spend a lot of time and still not have the connection. A lot of people spend every day with their kids and they don't have a connection. So I thought, I need to do something else. I need, especially if I'm away at times, I need to create with my kids what I call moments. Because I had 5 fathers, but I'll tell you one thing, one of them impacted me the most, and I had the least amount of time with him. But I had moments that I'll never forget for the rest of my life that impacted my heart and my soul. So how do I do that? What can we do? And I thought it can be in little things. And so I try to find out what does each child, what does each of them really need and want that make them feel loved? What's their strategy? Not what I want to give, what do they really need? So my 6-year-old, when he's 4, is like, what did he need? He needed to go outside and play in this filthy, dirty field with me. He loved to go out in this dirty field and play these bizarre games that didn't make any sense. Right? But I realized that's what he wanted. So I got in there and became a kid. And we're out there in this dirty field, wooden around, doing these stupid, crazy things. And he says, Dad, his way of describing me to his teacher is kind of interesting. I'll never forget the first time I met his teachers. I came in and the teacher looked at me. The teacher's eyes got like this big. Looked at my son Jarek, looked at me again, and finally the teacher came up and said, can I ask you a question? Do you live in a castle? I said, yeah. I said, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. Your son's, we thought he was delirious. He said, my father's a giant, lives in a castle, and he's flying in a helicopter and picking me up. He's flying in to pick me up in his helicopter. Sure, kid. So we're outside, and he goes, hey, Dad, we're out in this big dirty field. He says, Dad, you're a giant, pick up this boulder and throw it. Okay, son. Bags hurting. I got my kid, please, boy. Now, I grew up extremely poor. One of the reasons I wanted to earn money was the ability to give it and the ability to take care of my family. I didn't want my kids to grow up in the environment I grew up with because it was somewhat painful. It was a lot painful. And it certainly wasn't all money, but it definitely added stress. And so the bottom line is, I also, though, earned everything I have. So I have so much gratitude for everything I have in the business world, the material world. And so it's this delicate balance that I'm sure many of you experience also with your children, which is you want to give them everything, but also you want them to value it. So I try to make my kids earn things, but once in a while I like to just go splurge and surprise them. So one day I take Jarek and I said, we're just going to go to the Toy Store. Why? Just because you're a great person, that's why. Why else? That's a good reason. So we go there and we, how many of you saw the movie, what's that movie? Big. How many saw the movie Big? Yeah, remember the Toy Store scene? That's Jarek and I in the Toy Store. I'm all there shooting and playing games, throwing stuff back and forth. People going, yeah. And so the bottom line, we're there for an hour and a half. I said, you can have one toy, anything in the store, but only one. Anything, one toy, but there's no limit. I said, because that's what I want you to learn. There are no limits. Whatever you really ask for in life, you can get if you're committed. So he looks around, goes through all his stuff. We spent an hour and 15 minutes. Finally, he's made his decision. And of course, I'm hoping he's picking things I picked out. So we can play together, right? So sure enough, what happens? Well, he comes up, I say, okay, you go get it, I'll wait here, you surprise me. And sure enough, I turn around, there he is, holding a plastic rake. I'm like, what? That's what you want out of the whole toy store? He goes, yeah, Dad, that way we can go home and rake together. Oh boy, son. Oh boy. Like, I thought I got rid of that. I hire people to do that stuff. I don't want to have to do that stuff. But my son wants to go out there and rake. So sure enough, we're out there raking. But you know what? Something amazing happens. There's this connection while we're sitting here raking, you know? And we laugh and we giggle and we talk and we create this connection and we have moments that I know I'll never forget. And I'm sure he'll never forget either. I go to my son Joshua. At the time he was 9 years old, I guess. Joshua's 9, and I connect with Joshua. Joshua's number one focus was Nintendo games, you know? So I'm out on the road. So one day I fly into town. He doesn't know I'm there. And at noon I go to his school. I check him out of school. He's like, what's the matter? What happened? What's going on? I said, nothing's the matter. He said, well, why'd you take me out of school? I said, because it's Joshua's day. He said, what? I said, I haven't been with you. I want to be just with you. Not the whole family, just with you. Just you and I together. He said, well, that's pretty great. I said, and we can do anything we want today. Anything at all. You name it, we're going to go do it. We'll go have fun together. I don't care what it is. He said, anything? I said, yeah, anything. He said, well, could we go to the zoo? I said, sure. He said, could we go to like SeaWorld? I said, sure. He said, could we like go like, miniature golfing? I said, sure. He said, could we go to a video game or card? I said, sure. He said, okay, let's do that. I said, all of those things? He said, yeah. I said, all right, let's do it. So one day we did it all. It was the most incredible days. I was like exhausted at the end of the day. But it was great. And we would sit there, I learned things from him and about him, being with him in all those different environments in one day, more than I had in about a year and a half. And created this bond. And this day he won't forget. A moment. See, by the end of your life, you won't remember your whole life, but you'll remember moments. That's what you remember. My daughter, Jolie, she was, I guess, 13 at the time. 13 years old, a little precocious. She and I are probably the most alike out of all my kids. Pretty outrageous. She's a dancer. She's out there, goes for it 100%. Great kid, fun kid. We are so much alike, it's unbelievable. We even like the same music, everything. Except one area was a problem at 13. That is that we had a different idea about who role models should be. Because we both, for example, loved Madonna, Madonna's music, loved her music, great music. But she wanted to dress like Madonna. I said, I don't want you dressing like Madonna because Madonna's a slut! I know she's not, but it feels that way. And at 13, now you want dressing like this slut! I'm not very conservative, though. And so we had these spirited debates, she and I. It's the only area we weren't really in alignment with. And how do you let a teenager know you really love them? Well, what does a teenager want? I don't know about yours, but most teenagers I know, how many of you have teenage kids? What do they want most? No, what they want most is they want to know that you trust them. They want their freedom. They want to know that they're a big person now. They're an adult. So I thought, how can I really let her know that I love her? Well, I can tell her I love her. I can hold her. I can hug her and stuff. But probably one of the biggest things is if I showed her I totally trusted her. Like, totally. Or if I did something she knows I really don't want to do. So what if, like, you know your children love a particular group and you open the newspaper one day and there you see, there's that role model group like Motley Crue or Poison or some other really great role model crowd that you'd like your group to go in. And you see that and you think, and you know your kids want to go. And you know they're going to come and ask you to go. What if instead of waiting, like I had a friend once who was a perfect role model of what not to do with your children. Because he was unbelievably wealthy in financial terms. I mean, way beyond where I am. And I used to watch him with his kids, like ask him for something, and he'd ask and ask, he'd make them beg, he'd make them grovel, and finally take the money in the pocket, he'd crunch up, throw it on the ground, and go, if you want it that bad, take it. Great way to treat your kids. So I learned what not to do from some people. You can learn from what works and also what doesn't work. So what if instead of like waiting till they come and beg you for it, what if you see that like Madonna's coming to town, and or whatever group it is, and you run down a local ticket agency in advance, and you buy a couple tickets, one for them and one for a friend. And then what do? Then each morning, when you wake up, you take the tickets and you put them in your breast pocket, waiting for that inevitable morning when your son or daughter comes to you and says, Dad, would you like some fresh squeezed orange juice? And you say, Jolie, what for? Well, no, I'm fine. Well, would you like me to wash the car? No. Jolie, what is this about? What do you want? Well, Dad, there's this concert coming to town. You mean Madonna? Well, yeah. Here. And when you revive her, she looks at the tickets and says, I don't understand. And you say, listen, you know I love her music, you love her music. She's a slut, but other than that, I know she's not really a slut, I'm just teasing you. I don't want you dressing that way, but if you want to for a night, that's fine with me, because I totally trust you. And I love you, and I know it's something you want. So even though it's not my favorite thing, I know it's something that's favorite for you, so I want to make sure you have it. Because you're part of my team. So I want you to have a great time. I love you, honey. And then you want to make sure it's an incredible moment. So there's 2 tickets. There's one for you and a friend. And then you want to make sure it's a moment they don't forget. So you either own a limousine or you rent one, whichever's easiest. And you put them in the back of the limousine, and they go to a limo to the concert at 13 with their friend. Their friend's going, yeah. And they get to the concert, and they pull around the back, and they go up to the bleacher seats. The guy takes their tickets and says, "You're in the wrong place. Follow me." And they walk, 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 and they walk. And they leave the bleacher area, go to reserved. Pretty impressive. They walk, and 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 they walk, getting closer and closer towards the stage. They leave reserve, they go to Loge. Walk, and they 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 walk. They leave Loge, they walk into orchestra. Your daughter turns to the person and says, "Excuse me, there must be some mistake. My parents bought these tickets." Says, "No, follow me." And they walk, 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 until they get to the front row. Very middle 2 seats, where they can just look up and watch Madonna wiggle. And your daughter's best friend turns to her and says, "You have the most awesome father on the planet." And that night you wait up. Not because you're concerned, but because you want to see the state your creativity has generated. And so you wait in the living room in the dark with the lights out. And sure enough, finally you hear the limousine pull up. The front doors open, and you hear the voice, "Like a virgin, woo," and you think, "Oh no." And all of a sudden the lights come on, and for a moment she doesn't see you. And all of a sudden your son or daughter comes sprinting, leaps out a yell, and comes sprinting across the room, jumps up in your lap, grabs you and holds you and kisses you all over. And then says something in your eyes with tears in her eyes that you'll never forget. She looks in your eyes and says, "How come God made me so lucky? He has to give me a dad like you." And then you have a moment you won't forget. All because you took care of your team. Take care of your team. It's called lifestyle. How stupid to make money and not to invest it in the people you love. How stupid not to feel connected to every person around you who's part of your team, including those you used to call strangers. How crazy not to express love, because whatever you want, you should give. If you give what you want, you'll receive it tenfold. And if you don't think about trying to get, and you just give, you get an unbelievable sense of self-esteem that does not come from anything else in this world except contribution. It's fun to watch people light up. That's what life's about. It's probably why you picked the profession you're in. But being in the profession is not enough. Making a difference in other people's is not enough. You got to make a difference in your own life by feeling and being associated and connected to the people you're with. Don't just do the job. Don't just heal people. Heal thyself, physician. And everyone here is the physician or healer. We need to take care of ourselves while we take care of other people. You got to take care of the team inside of you. You got to make sure that you stay associated, that you don't get caught up. That every day you take the juice out of that day. You don't let the day take the juice out of you. And the difference is a choice. It's a decision. It's a decision to stay connected and remember what's most important. I guess the last thing I'd say to you is this. Join a team that will challenge you intensely. You want to be happy? You want to be wealthy? Join a team that will challenge you every day. See, a lot of people think a friend is somebody who, like, whatever happens, they're just like there, supportive of you. And that's true and it's not true. It's true that a friend is somebody who will always be there for you no matter what. But I think a real friend is somebody who, when we all have a time when, like, we need to put our head on somebody's shoulder and have them just love us. But if they're really a friend, there'll be a point where they'll stop and they'll say, listen, you're better than this. And there's no way, I'm not going to give you sympathy things because I love you. I do love you. That's why I can't give you sympathy. You're better than this. I want you to get out there and do this right now. I'm not going to accept all this stuff. I'm not going to let you do this anymore. No way. You get out there and do it. Somebody who cares enough about you, they'll kick you in the butt and hold you to a standard. But he'll do it with love, not with glee. See, I don't mind a minister telling me, if you sin like this, you're going to go to hell, and doing it with all this intensity, as long as he does it with tears and not a smile. See, we're all moved by somebody who cares about us. and we all get off track. I don't care who you are. Gravity is constant. The negative pull is there. In the absence of light, there is darkness. And the only way you stay alight is surround yourself with other lights. So if it ever something happens where your light goes out for a moment, somebody else relights you. Just by being around, you're part of the bonfire of love and power and commitment and support. There's nothing like that. You don't want somebody who just accepts you all the time as you are and lets you buy into your own excuses. You want somebody who is committed and supports and challenges you. J. Willard Marriott, the man who built this hotel, in his autobiography wrote down a phrase, a poem that he built his entire life around. He said, "Good timber does not grow with ease. The stronger the wind, the stronger the trees." Find a group of people that will push you and demand the most from you, and you'll find out what's really possible. And that's what we're about at Fortune. Fortune is about a team of people who I get to call my partners, who are my friends, my family. And it's about all of us coming together and having a level of commitment like we did last night while we sat and did whatever it took to make sure that today you would get the deepest message, which is not just how to schedule, which is incredibly valuable, but make sure you know how to live so you enjoy what comes out of that scheduling. And people who will tell each other the truth 100%. I haven't been a part of a team quite like this before where every single player on the team at Fortune I have absolute total respect for because of their absolute commitment to integrity and supporting others. And it's not about them, it's about their support of you. That feels pretty incredible to be part of that team. And we're here to be that team for you if you want us, and if you don't, we'll still be there. But we'll be here to help coach you and support you and be your friend, the person to challenge you as well. But don't just count on us, count on you and count on the family you have right there next to you in your office. You got some real power with that. So I guess if one word or phrase was going to sum everything I was going to say, I guess I'd say, I think most people in life are talkers. Most people in life talk a good game. They talk about how it should be and how it needs to be and what they ought to do and how they're part of a team. Maybe you don't want to be a talker. Maybe you want to become one of those people who really uses the stuff at the deepest level and goes for more. Maybe you'd be one of those people that when you walk by, you'd be what I call one of the few who do versus the many who talk. So when you walk by, people go, there he goes, there she goes. It's one of those few who do. Where people talk about you behind your back. And they say some pretty nice things. Where your life really matters. I guess my final message is not just take care of your team, but take care of the team inside of you. Don't just be a talker. Be a walker. And I thank you for the gift of these last 2.5 days with you, and I'm looking forward to our relationship growing. And I hope that I'll get the chance to hear some stories from you of how you've taken care of your team over the last 90 days when I see you in about 3 months. Thanks so much for the gift of your time and your attention, and we have a break now.